Pam was born in Zimbabwe and lived in South Africa for many years before moving to the United States with her husband and children. Her life experiences in all three countries have affirmed her mantra, people before politics. One of her favorite South African words is to, translated, it says to act with kindness and humanity in ways that benefit the community. It means I am because we are. Today, Pam is the executive director of the Social Food Bank. Under her leadership, and despite a pandemic-induced food security crisis, which brought about its own set of challenges, the Social Food Bank has become an award-winning organization, earning a reputation for innovation and having a multifaceted approach to food security. Just this past summer, the Social Food Bank and Weymouth Food Pantry was named Hunger Relief Champion by the Greater Boston Food Bank. Pam is an author, an artist, and an avid gardener. Honored to be here with you this morning, Pam.
Thank you. And George, you sponsored our scavenger hunt too. You're such a great community member. Thank you. All of our sponsors here today have touched the food pantry in some way or another. So I thank you for being so community minded and for giving us the opportunity to gather like we are today.
I'm going to kick things off with a very loaded question.
Oh my gosh.
Very open-ended general question.
Is it tequila?
Just tell us about your history, Pam. I mean, even just coming from Zimbabwe and South Africa, how did you get to where you are today?
Oh my goodness. So, I look back at the years I've been in this world, and I'm just thankful for the journey that I've had. Born in Zimbabwe when it was Rhodesia as an English colony, witnessed the first liberation. Very loaded question because it's a very heavy story, but my mom and dad escaped from Rhodesia once it became Zimbabwe. We were refugees into South Africa. We came with all of our belongings stuffed into the of my mom and dad's VW vehicle because we weren't allowed to, we had to pretend we were going on holiday. We had a friendly at the border who we had to get there at 6 in the morning first thing because we had to pray he was going to be on duty and let us through. So I remember so much anxiety about that. My mom and dad, I can remember my mom turning around. Anything. Because we were small. I mean, I can't even imagine as a parent with 2 kids in that situation. With 5 and 6, what we're gonna say, anything. Anyhow, so got through that. We moved into a very Afrikaans suburb in South Africa, which is not a language I spoke. And I can, just feeling so other and confused and didn't know what was happening. And people would speak to me in Afrikaans and then they would speak to me slower in Afrikaans. Didn't help. So, schooling was a challenge, whatever. And we got to witness the first election of a Black president in Zimbabwe. We got to witness the abolishment of apartheid in South Africa, the first election of a Black president in South Africa. And then I moved here and we had Obama, the first Black president. So it's all about me. So just, I've had a front row seat to so many wonderful historic moments. I've been a minority, I've been privileged, I've been less privileged. I think I've walked in so many people, different kinds of shoes. And it's really given me, I think, a lot of insight and compassion that I bring into the job that I have today.
Yeah, so how has that helped you become the leader that you are today, seeing all these different cultural shifts, and especially in today's world with all of this focus on DEI, how has your background helped you become a leader?
Well, so South Africa, I don't know if any of you know this, but we have, I think we're a country that has the most spoken languages in one place in the world. So we have 11 national languages, so everything is translated 11 times. If you go to court for anything, if you apply for electricity or a telephone, you can request those documents in any one of those 11 languages. But we have over 30 spoken languages. And we're a country the size, a little bigger than Texas. So language and otherness and color, what is that? All irrelevant, really. Because it's just, language is just a way of communicating. And so I think we, despite apartheid, we're living with more acceptance of each other, really, than I think we do here today, sadly. You know, I just at the pop-up pantry on Saturday, we had a row of people waiting for help, lining up. We've had the busiest year imaginable. It's put pressure on all of our distribution. And the one guy, you know, said to me, "What are all these brown people doing here? They don't live here." You know, and it's hard. He's coming for food. He's stressed. I'm trying to, you know, give him the thing, but I'm like, dude. Should I go get the 6-year-old little girl that's standing over there and bring her over here so you can tell her she can't have breakfast? Don't be ridiculous. Yeah. So I have no tolerance for it, really. And I try very hard to lead the food pantry in that way and to set the standard of what we expect. And the standard is that, you know, we can call it DEI. I even hate labels. Seriously, labels are so reductive. If I say, hey, you're a mom, it discounts everything else you are. And at the same time, labels are important because it identifies opportunities for you. So if we say, you know, Black Lives Matter, it identifies all the growth that we have in that space and where all the issues are and how we're supposed to lean in. But at the same time, if I call somebody like that's not who they are. There is so much else to them. Doctors, and same with me. If you call me a white suburban mom, yes, that is what I am, but I'm also other things. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered that.
Well, when we talked, you were, you know, going back to sort of the language aspect when you first came here and this cultural shift and the accent that you have, and we talked a lot about like communication and sort of what is that? What is language and communication sort of mean to you?
Yeah, because living in a country where 30 languages are spoken, what I found when I moved here was one skill South Africans have is the ability to convey intent and meaning without the use of actual words and language. Like I can say to somebody, you know, I would say you could talk to somebody in a grocery store and gesture and use facial expressions and smile, frown, and all of these things are taken in when we're communicating because you're working a little harder to understand somebody who doesn't speak your language. And when I moved here, I didn't realize that that was happening until, you know, we all speak English here, most of us. And so I would go to the store and have an accent and I would say something and people would look at me like I wasn't speaking English. And I would get frustrated because, I mean, it's the same language, okay? I have an accent. I don't think I'm that hard to understand. But sometimes the words would just be different and people would have no clue and couldn't make the leap from what I was trying to say to whatever. And so, you know, that's a skill that I wish we would lean into a little bit. And also, you know, I don't know, language is just one way of communicating. Language does not define who you are. It does not define your worth, your value, your intelligence. That is a big thing. I mean, I work with a bunch of Haitian leaders in the community who are working hard on the immigrant issues. And I've been into meetings with them for funding. And, you know, my friend Arthur will talk and he has a thick Haitian accent. He doesn't have a firm grasp of the English language, but he can get through a meeting and he can be understood. But the amount of times I've seen people visibly discount him because of his accent, when he's a super smart guy and a brilliant leader. And when you see him in his face, it's unbelievable to watch people rally around him. He has something really magical. So it's always very discouraging. I get, you know, to have somebody, he'll say something and they'll turn to me and ask me a question. And I'm like, okay, Arthur, what do you think? So yeah, that's my fear in language. And I told you the McDonald's story. I was here, I don't know, a couple months. And in South Africa, fries are chips. So I go to McDonald's, frantic day, running around. And I go to the drive-through and I say, can I have this, and this, and like some chips, please? No, we don't have those here. I'm like, yes, you do. No, we don't have those here. I'm like, does she just not want to give me the chips? Why won't she? They're right there in the menu. I said, you have them, they're there. I can see them. She said, we have never had chips. And it was McDonald's. I'm like, what are those gold sticks? Tomato, potato. She said, oh, you mean fries? I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, I think all this otherness is just super troublesome. I look at all the leaders in history, and you can, pick one. And whenever anybody has led with their heart, or led with compassion, we call them great. Right? So that is where I think leadership, that's where I think one of my strengths is. It's just, I don't want others. I want everybody to have a seat at the table. We spoke also about, sorry, I'm talking too much. We spoke also about this paper I read years ago about Western culture versus African culture and its effects on business and its effects on leaders in business. And in Western culture, our success is defined by exclusivity. If you can belong to this club no one else belongs to, you're successful. If you can live in this neighborhood that only a few people have access to, that's success. If you drive this car that only a few people drive, you're successful. In African culture, the more people you have around you, the more successful you are. The more people at your wedding, the more people in your village, the more people at your funeral, that is what success looks like. And so they, examine how that the knock-on effects of that in business and in business leadership and in politics. And the result is that in Western culture, we tend to have less access, I guess, for people on the ground to people at the top. We have more closed-door meetings. We redact information. We don't share everything in Western culture with people below us. We have committees who discuss things and then things are rolled out. In African leaders, what they tend to find is it's a more open door policy, more engaging, more people from the bottom are brought in to problem solve. Oh, what? We have this issue on the warehouse floor. Well, let's bring the warehouse workers in and let them tell us what the issue is instead of let's hire a consultant to go and examine efficiencies. It's a completely different way of looking at things. And so I found that paper super interesting. And I'm always mindful of that, because I walk in both worlds. So I'm always mindful of what's the best that I can take of either of them and implement it to make the best possible organization.
Right. So how do you have that operate in your daily operation, but you're also a people pleaser? And we talked about how do you sort of find the difference between being a leader and setting that boundary while also being a people pleaser and want to take everybody's ideas and have the open door meetings.
And as a woman, I hate, as a woman, I find this is an area that is particularly hard for me and for some other women that I know. Because I'm a people pleaser, because, at home, I'm like, have you got your snack? Have you got your lunch? Did you get your bag? Have you got your homework? To my husband too, don't forget, I packed you this in the fridge or whatever. You're corralling all these people and you're like, you want to make sure everybody's well and everybody has what they need. And then, you come into the workspace and you're like, I'm very collaborative. And I'm like, what do you think? What is your idea? And have you got what you need? But it's so weird. For the woman in my team, it works. And I don't, want to, whatever. But for a lot of the guys on my team, and I have some strong male personalities on my team, they started to treat me like I was their support staff, right? So that, one guy came into my office one day and he said, oh, I'm going to go out and do this thing. While I'm gone, do you think you can do this? And I was like, sure. And then he walked up and was like, wait a minute. there's role reversal here, and I have to get on that. So it's super hard to be collaborative, to support your staff, and still maintain that leadership role and say, no, we're going here, and this is what I expect from you. Because I really honestly been put in that supportive role more than once because I'm collaborative. And then the other tough thing is when you ask everybody what their ideas are and then you don't take them, that can breed contempt too. So people can feel discounted, or like you didn't think their idea was great or not validated. So that's a challenge in that kind of leadership style. So you have to be, I've had to learn to be super mindful of, all right, let's brainstorm. And then afterwards, just maybe do a check and say, I loved your idea and I appreciate you bringing it to the table. And this is why we're going this way. And then just hope that people are going to use it as an opportunity to think more fully about something, or it's hard. It's hard. But sometimes I don't ask everybody anymore. Like I said, you walk with a foot in both worlds. Sometimes you have to be one way or the other.
Yeah, so how do you sort of balance those both worlds between, that's the question that I feel like is asked at every one of these events, right? Is how can you have it all between home life and being a mom and being at work, while also, using your strengths as a mom and a woman and bringing that to the workplace?
Oh my goodness. So, first of all, American moms, you rock. Hands down. Like when I moved here with my kids, South African moms are way more relaxed. Our kids are way more free range. They have a lot more free time, and they get up to way more mischief. And so when I first arrived here, just the learning curve of the expectations here as a mom of the events, and your kids need to do these sports and they also need to do these cultural things, and we're responsible for making them well-rounded, and I have to be on the PTA, and I have to fundraise, and then I also have to do this, and then I have to have a full-time job, and then my house is not clean and somebody's coming over, and balancing all of that is just nuts. We can't do it. Well, I could not do it. I'm not going to speak for everybody in the room, but something's got to give. And I think so many times, especially while I had my own business, because there's no backup. It's backup. I'm the backup. The buck stops here. There's no one I can call. If the computer goes down, I don't have IT. If the lights don't work, it's on me. If the license is on the van that's fired, it's on me. Like, it stops here. And so while you're trying to manage all of that and have that level of accountability in your own business, and then still have a family where the buck also stops here. I can't find somebody and say, hey, can you take these kids and, I don't know, do whatever? It's me. So whatever, I just think we all need to give ourselves a huge pat on the back and say, if I could go back and say anything to my younger self, I would say, you're doing great. You're doing great, and it's going to be okay. And so what if you have to wash the laundry again because it's sat in the washing machine and you didn't get it out in time because something else happened? I think the other thing that I've realized, and we spoke a lot about this, about our kids, is our kids come into this world with their personalities pre-programmed. You cannot convince me otherwise. My daughter knew exactly what she wanted the second she arrived, and she let us know if we all displeased her. And my son was the most easygoing kid ever on the planet. And really our jobs are to love them, to make them feel safe, to make sure they're well provided for, that they have enough food, healthy food, that they have clothes on their back, and then to say, what is it you want to do? And let me help you do that. We need to raise kids that are resilient, not straight age on the report card. Well, that's very. I didn't have those kids. They are perfectly fine, and I worried for them. I put a lot of pressure on them for no damn good reason, because I don't know. I just figure we're going to find our place in this world, and they will too, and they are going to be fine. And so I think resilience and it's more important, it's one of the most important things that we can give our kids as a gift living in this world today. Hell yeah. And, you know, the ability or the freedom to make mistakes. Because we expect our kids to be perfect. I find there's a lot of pressure on kids now. Are you doing the thing? Can you stay with this? And we're like, oh, my kid did this to this person and this mom's crossed and whatever. Okay, he did. Can't apologize. This is why you can't say that. But okay, we've learned something. And he won't do that again, I hope. But you know, the freedom to make mistakes and to learn from them is another enormously beneficial life skill. And the rest is going to be okay. They're going to be fine. They're going to be fine.
And so how about your own, I don't want to say mistakes because it taught you life lessons, but when you realized that you were in the wrong job and that you were not meant to be in the finance world.
One girl, I love you. Finance is not for me. I did it for a couple of years. When I first arrived here, I was on the client relations team at an investment firm, and I loved the people I worked with, but my goodness, there are so many rules. What you can't say, what you can't say, who you can give what, whatever. It was enormously structured, and my creative spirit, whatever you want to call it, did not thrive. And so, you know, learning that about myself, because, you know, moving to America too, the American dream. And the first day I arrived in Boston, I was watching all these women in these coats with their coffee and their briefcases, and they were doing the thing, and I'm like, that looks great. I want to live this dream. I want to send a photo of myself to my friends back in South Africa, living this life. Well, she tried. So, you know, understanding too, being a new person in a new country, learning new cultures, learning a new language, was interesting in and of itself, but then also understanding that it's not that I sucked. It's not that I was a failure. It's not that I didn't do well. It was that this environment was not the right environment for me, and that I wasn't going to thrive here. That only came in hindsight, because I beat myself up for a good amount of time to say, you know, why can't you do the thing? Why is this so hard for you? And, you know, everything is new, which made it harder. So coming to the realization that I am miserable, I am not happy, and I need to make a change, and then making that change, and then as time goes by, learning how much better I feel about everything and how much more successful I am, then you realize, okay, right. So environment matters, what you're doing matters. And if you're not thriving, honestly, it's not you. Go find something else. Go find the place where you are. Go find your moments in the sunlight. You know, we can't be great at
for somebody that feels stuck or feels like they have this vision of success, right? The briefcase and the coffee and working in Boston or whatever it may be. Somebody has that vision of what they think is successful, but maybe they're not happy or they're not in the right place where they could succeed. What advice would you give to somebody who's kind of stuck in their career at that point in time?
Take a risk. Take a risk, jump. Life is short. We have a finite number of days on this planet. We don't get extension. There's no, you know, extra time. This is it. So if you find yourself struggling uphill all the time, no matter where it is, what aspects of your life, whether it is at home, in a relationship, at work, take a risk. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to learn something. Okay, you've learned something. Then you'll try something else. You know, don't be miserable. It's not worth it.
Do you feel like moving here gave you an easier out in that way? Like you moved here and you had no boundary. Where did you go? What did you do? Like the opportunities were endless. And that's what a unique opportunity to have Whereas somebody who grew up here and they lived in this town and this is sort of their vision of what they wanted, but you came here and the world was your oyster.
That is terrifying. When you learn that one decision, right, the decision to move, one decision, okay, led to a whole bunch of actions. But the decision of, are we going to do this? Weigh pros, cons, whatever, yes, we're going to do it. One decision has such a profound, unimaginable impact on my life. You realize the power of that decision. And then it's like, pardon me, go back. For a little while, you become stymied about I became fearful of making decisions. I'm like, well, if this one thing did this, all the other decisions that you make, there's huge power in it. And so, yeah, I think it's been great. I have absolutely no regrets. I love where we live. I love New England. I love my community. I'm loving my work. But yeah, take a risk, make a choice, because it can change everything.
And so how about your choice to become an entrepreneur, having your own business for 10 years?
10 years, I'm the biggest bitch I've ever worked for. I was harder on myself than anyone I have ever worked with. So I loved every minute. I huge learning curve. Again, you know, okay, what am I going to do now? Because I have kids. I need to be more present for them. I can't be working in Boston these long hours. I can't be commuting. It's just not good for our family. And so I need to find something to do that's local, that, you know, whatever. And I need to have that community piece that I'm missing. So I started a local food and organic vegetable business, working with local farms, curating offerings, and delivering it to people's homes. And I thought, this is going to be great. I'm going to cook great food. I'm going to start a blog. I'm going to share wonderful recipes. I'm going to be the next Martha Stewart. This is going to be fantastic. Well, no, none of that happened. What happened was I got a steep learning curve in logistics. Moving something from here to here, how many things in a box? How many boxes on a pallet? What do you need to move a pallet? How many things can go in a van? How long does it take a driver to go from here to here? I learned it all. Logistics. And I mean, we spoke about this the other day too, that nothing, when you're in logistics, nothing goes according to plan. I'll put money on it. You can say, okay, this is coming from here to there. It'll arrive then. I'm going to mobilize this team then. We're going to get this done. And then that can go out then. Whew, that'll be great. Yep, no. The van will break down. The workers won't show up to pick the stuff. It'll be 6 things in a box instead of 20. And you'll need more because you thought you were getting 20, but you're only getting 6. And you know what? You have to fix this problem in 6 hours because these guys are heading out on delivery. And so I learned to pivot. I learned to jump. I learned to reimagine. And I learned to communicate, because when something doesn't go right, your first stop needs to be, okay, team, let's regroup. What are we doing? What is here? Customers, this is what's happened. This is what you're getting. And as long as you can communicate to each point along the way, it'll be okay. I think that should be my motto. It'll be okay.
So it's reminding me of the conversation that we had about Sandra.
Oh yeah.
And so I want you to tell the audience, who is Sandra? When you channel your inner Sandra, what does that mean?
So yeah, I was in hospitality early in my career, and I was you know, working in casinos and large scale events, and very high, very visible events. And you know, like I said, early in my career, and I had the very big privilege of working with Sandra. Sandra was, I think, 4'5" woman. She always was impeccably dressed. She wore bright red lipstick everywhere she went, string of pearls, on every, in every outfit. And she was an event manager. I never, in the years that I knew her, heard her raise her voice, lose her temper, or get flustered. And in the event business, that's saying something.
I'd like to. Yeah.
Right? It didn't matter what went down, and stuff went down. We had keynote speakers who were delayed in airports that didn't arrive for opening events. We had catering bands that were supposed to arrive with this fantastic menu that broke down, and there was no food. We had big scale catastrophes that would have completely derailed events that Sandra was in charge of. And she just was like, all right, great weather we're having today. Okay, so who's in the building? It's always her first question. So, okay, I'll keynote speaker in the line. You go and get me a list of everybody who is checking to this hotel, and let's find somebody else to do the keynote address. Or in the instance where the catering trucks broke down, we were in a remote location near a lot of informal settlements. And so informal settlements are known for having these shebeens. They're like informal kind of speakeasies, underground, whatever. So what did she do? She got hold of the local staff at the hotel. She said, all right, I know you guys know who all these shebeens are. This is what we need. And she got the local shebeen owners to cook up food and bring it in, which they were all well reimbursed because, I don't know why I said that, it's not relevant, but she got them all to bring in food, and it completely changed the entire atmosphere of this event. It turned into something embracing local culture, tasting local foods, and it elevated it. And that is the gift that Sandra had. She never got flustered. She never lost her cool. She never lost her temper. I never heard her raise her voice to anybody, no matter how hot they came at her, no matter what the disaster was. She always pivoted. And when she did, she always made it better. So when when stuff goes down, and it does, all of us in our lives. I mean, when you're supposed to be someplace and you're nowhere near there, or however big or small it is, I always take a minute and think of my friend Sandra and go, I wore red lipstick for the longest time because I was like, I'm gonna be Sandra. Well, that's the other lesson here, is that you can't be somebody you're not. You have to be your authentic self and lead into your own gifts. But we can definitely learn from the woman around us and channel the things that they were great at. And she was really great at crisis management. And I have leaned on her more times than she knows. To make things right, to make things better, and to figure out what the heck, COVID, food insecurity, long lines, no food, whatever. We never missed the delivery. We never missed the distribution. We never turned anyone away. And we pivoted 100 times a day during COVID. And I credit a large part of the way we were able to move through that experience to working with that.
Yeah, so tell us about that. You ran a food pantry throughout a pandemic. It was probably some of the craziest years of your life. And throughout it all, congratulations. You've been there almost 6 years now. You've won the award from the Greater Boston Food Bank. You were runner-up in Best of the South Shore. You've done an amazing job, so kudos to you.
Thank you.
So tell us about your leadership and how you've been running the food pantry so successfully. You're now growing to the South Shore Food Bank. You're expanding regionally, and COVID. You channeled Sandra and you still did it with grace and were successful. Can I tell everybody about that?
Yeah, so COVID, I mean, we're all past talking about COVID, let's be honest. I know that I certainly would like to put that in the rearview mirror. But I gave up a home delivery business for food about a year before COVID hit and took a job at a food pantry. I'm going to let that sink in. We would have made a killing in the local food delivery business. However, I again have no regrets. I feel like fortuitously I was put in the place that I was needed at the time I was needed. When I came into Weymouth Food Pantry, it was, and my job really was to babysit it. I was hired to babysit it. And no, we haven't had, so I came in and we were a much smaller operation. We were moving food around on rollers and with a very small lift gate, and we didn't really have the infrastructure to scale operations. And so when I first moved in, I'm like, oh, you know what? One thing that I can do is make everybody's life easier and get us the equipment we need to move the food that we have to move. And so that was the first thing. And thank goodness I did that, because when things scaled up and we needed to mobilize and step up, we doubled our output in 1 year. For a small community grassroots organization, my team size didn't change, my building didn't change, the size of my fridge and freezer didn't change, and we doubled our output. We couldn't have done that if we hadn't have made those changes early on. And so, we had a board meeting last night, and one of my board members, Kevin, said to me, Pam, you know what your gift is? He said, because I was telling him about today, and he said, you should tell everybody this is what you're good at. He said, you have a knack for anticipating the need, anticipating what needs to happen before it happens. And so, okay, that's a very nice compliment, Kevin. I call it luck. Because a lot of the things you do, I had no idea COVID was on the horizon. It was just, again, I feel like I was placed in the right place at the right time to do the things that needed to be done to help the community. And so a lot of the scaling operations, a lot of the pivoting on lessons I learned from Sandra, on lessons I learned running my own business, when the logistics, when things go wrong and you have to pivot, you have to figure it out. I mean, we never back down. I think that is the other thing that I think makes a great leader. You have to be tenacious. You have to be brave. You have to move forward. You have to set your eyes on what needs to be done. And that is what's happening. From hell or high water, we're doing it. We're doing the thing, whatever it is. And so that's been great. And then since then, we learned so much about the South Shore, about infrastructure on the South Shore for food insecurity. I learned a lot about the landscape of food insecurity on the South Shore. I mean, food pantries play a vital role in addressing food insecurity at a community level. They're grassroots, they're in the community, they're best suited to meet the needs of that community because the demographics of each town are a little different. In some towns, people they have more senior, or there are more families, or there's more, whatever it is. There's nuances to each of the towns. And so what makes the food pantries incredibly well poised to meet that need is that they understand what those needs are. Barriers to food insecurity we think are all economic. They're not. Sometimes it's access. Sometimes you live in a food desert. Sometimes it's one guy, Tom, that we help take care of. He is an older guy. He was married for 65 years when his wife died of breast cancer. And then he had a stroke. They had no kids. And so he is living on, his social security benefits. But he can't cook. He's never cooked. And now he's had a stroke. And he can't drive. So he is homebound and can't cook. So when we, met him, it was through a neighbor who phoned out of concern. And so we went to go see him, and he was living on 1 can of mixed vegetables. But then he was trying to make last for 4 days until his nephew from New York was going to come and take him grocery shopping. He said, Tom, why don't you speak to your nephew? Oh, I don't want to be a bother. I don't want to be a nuisance. He's busy. I mean, I don't know if you have ever heard those words out of an old person's mouth. I have. So, you understand that his need is not necessarily, a food pantry. His need is cooked meals. And so we started a Made with Love program because there are other people like Tom, and that that program, we cook meals, we freeze them. They're home cooked, they're sodium free, they have all these things, and then we can put them in people's freezers and he can just pop it in the microwave whenever he needs it. So barriers to food security are layered. For kids, kids are, at school and, at the mercy of their parents and the adults in their community. And we have a backpack program that feeds Weymouth Public, that helps support students in Weymouth Public. We have 500 kids in Weymouth on that program, 500, which to me is insane because we're living in a first world country, one of the wealthiest, most powerful countries in the world. How can we have kids who are struggling with hunger at school? It's unacceptable. And when I tell you that to fix that problem, it costs $2 a week, you're like, what? $2, okay, food for all the kids because of, so it's layered. It's layered and the solutions are different. The solutions for the kids are different to the solutions for the seniors, to the solutions for families, to people who are homebound. Everybody's needs are different and everybody comes from a different set of circumstances that put them in this situation. And so there isn't a one solution for all. SNAP is part of the solution, it isn't the only solution. And so what COVID taught me was that there is huge food inequity on the South Shore, town to town, based on what food pantries exist and what they're able to do. That is a problem. That is a problem we can't get. That can't happen. And so, we really examined as a board and together as an organization, how can we address it? How can we, because we can't be the thing in every town. That's not the solution because as I discussed, every community, that little thing is nuanced. And the other great thing about a food pantry is that they can mobilize like that. You need food, you don't have to fill out an application. You don't have to wait 6 weeks. You don't have to provide a bunch of documents. You need food, we can get you food today. So it's immediate. And so how can we wrap our arms around this problem and improve food equity on the South Shore and help food pantries in each community do better? And so one of those things is logistics, which we provide. We have a van that food pantries can borrow. It's a refrigerated van. We have space. We have fridges. We have freezers. I have a truck. We have loading docks. I can accept large donations, which we do. I can share it with food pantries, which we do. We're a cross-dock for Greater Boston Food Bank. So we've opened this massive artery for food coming into the South Shore. We have been able to move like 2 million pounds in the last year. And it's really our first full year in business. 2 million pounds, more food on the South Shore thanks to what we've done. But then the other piece is the leadership program, which Ms. Jackie has been instrumental in and a huge part of. And that program was modeled off of the program here at the Chamber, which if you haven't applied for, please do, because it was an amazing experience. And I took everything that I learned on that program and was like, all right, how can we use this to help solve this problem? And we started a leadership program for food pantry managers. So we lean on local business talent. There's some of you in this room who participated, who have said, come, we're gonna talk to pantry leaders and you're gonna tell them how to do the thing. So food pantries are run largely by volunteers, people who have been stepped into that role because they're passionate but never run a nonprofit before. They could be a teacher, a nurse, and anything, any background imaginable. They all exist. But managing a nonprofit requires a specific set of skills, and to do it well requires a specific set of skills. So we paired local business leaders with food pantries. We got them in the same room and we were like, okay, you need to know about how to do a strategy plan. And Jackie is going to tell you the quick and dirty way how to do a strategy plan. And so from that experience, Jackie, food pantries have gone and done unbelievable things. It has had the biggest impact on food insecurity of anything else we've done on the South Shore. You will remember Pauline Lally, who you then assisted with coaching afterwards. She came to that program and since then has opened a cross-dock similar to ours on the South Coast. So she's opening a 5,000 square foot business. I think they have their ribbon cutting in December. She put massive fridges and freezers in. She is supporting the work of food pantries around her. She's serving her community in ways that not even she imagined would be happening, 2 or 3 years ago. Huge credit to her for leaning in, for taking the tools that she was given and for doing something. And she's not the only one. Walpole is doing the same. So each of the food pantries who've been on, we've tracked their progress, and each of them have made significant changes to their organization, whether it's modernizing things, using computers instead of index cards, or a simple thing like getting rid of qualifications for people coming to food pantries, because that isn't 30 years ago tactic. We don't do that anymore. So people now come to a food pantry and they need help. I'm not a financial analyst. I can't look at your books and say, oh my gosh, you really need help. Or no, you're fine. That's not my job. And it's food, it's not TV. So
Hey, you snuck me in there. I will tell you, we have a washer and dryer combo, they put the laundry in, and it goes right into the can. We can talk later.
So, so it just had such a tremendous impact, and we're seeing these food pantries step up and lean into what their roles are in their community and do better, and that's amazing to me. So it's you don't always have to be the solution. Sometimes you just need to find somebody to buddy up with, and together you'll be the solution.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so how can, this is the nonprofit and me coming out, how can the audience or the community help you in your work with food insecurity? Most of us live here, work here on the South Shore. We want to be part of the solution. So what are ways that people can help you?
Well, I think the first thing is to recognize that it exists. I born in Zimbabwe, lived in South Africa. Poverty is a real thing. It's visible. It's on every street corner. It's in every store. You see it. There's no way that you can pretend it doesn't exist. On my way to my interview, or preparing for my interview with Weymouth Food Pantry, I'm food hungry. I'm driving around here. There's nobody standing on the street corner saying, please, I need a loaf of bread like back home. And so I started to do some research and realized, so the first thing you can do is say, yes, this does exist. And it can't happen. Not in my town, not with my neighbors, not in my community. And post-COVID, the rates are so high. The cost of housing, all the things that were mentioned yesterday, the cost of housing, people's ability to just afford everything. And, I don't know, somebody said, oh, but, she's coming to the food pantry, she's driving a Lexus, she should just sell her car and buy food. Like, okay. And then the same woman who drove the Lexus used to always say, can I just hang out here? And at the end, when you're finished, can I just take whatever's left? And so our volunteers, some of them were getting crusty, like, who is this woman in this Lexus taking all the food? I'm like, well, let's have a conversation. So, love, what do you have going on? How are you? What's been happening? And come to find that she had lived a life as a housewife her whole life. And her husband got sick, and he spent a long time being sick, and she took care of him, but no provisions were made for her. So she was literally left after caring for her husband, pretty much dead, and ended up living in subsidized housing. She says, I know I have this car, but I can't bring myself to sell it because it still smells of him. So, okay, keep the damn car. Have it, live with it. I don't care. I mean, so I get it. And she says, and I've realized what an enormous life of privilege I've had. And living in this housing complex, I realize how much people are struggling. So I've been cooking. So she takes all the food we give her, she cooks up meals, and she has community dinners for all of her neighbors. So our judgment of what people need and where they are and what they should have is a dangerous, dangerous slippery slope. We really need to meet people where they are and to always have compassion. So first, there's a problem. There is a problem. Second, do something. It doesn't matter what. Volunteer, couple hours, you know, once a month or twice a year, whatever you can fit into your schedule. Volunteer, do a food drive, donate. Our buying power is 7-1. So if you give me enough money for a can of tuna, I will go buy 7 cans of tuna. If you give me a can of tuna, I have 1. And the other thing that cash allows us to do, frankly, the elephant in the room is asking for cash away from the nonprofit. You know, you knew you were going to get hit up today. You signed up anyway. So don't do that. The reality is that if you give me a can of tuna, I have a can of tuna. If I have 7,000 cans of tuna, then everyone's eating tuna and nothing but tuna for the whole week. So the cash also allows us to fill in gaps. If we need peanut butter or whatever to round out what they're offering, or fresh produce, because we're huge advocates. That was my business. I don't feel like nutrition and access to fresh food should be compromised for anyone who is struggling to make it, because that's not what care is. So, you know, we're able to do things like that, fresh produce. And then it also supports other programs. Somebody gives me money and says, I only want you to spend this on food. And I go, okay, I can honor that request. But here's the thing. If I pay my driver in my truck to go and do food rescue, the program was doing 20,000 pounds a year when I started. This year, we're going to do 250,000 pounds of rescued food on the South Shore that would have gone into the waste stream, right? If I use that money and pay my driver to go and do that, I'm going to have 220,000 pounds of food. If I take your money and I go and spend it on a can of tuna fish, I'm going to have a can of tuna fish. So I think it's important to ask your food pantries too, and about how they're spending their money, and get comfortable with the fact that, yeah, we may not go and buy tuna with that money, but we do take, and I've never met a food pantry manager who felt differently or behaved differently. We take every donation so serious. The other people are giving us their money. That's a huge responsibility. And we always, all of us, do the very best we can to make the most out of that thing, to get as much as we can for the community we're serving, because we don't have a choice. The need this year we'll do 800,000 pounds to Weymouth Food Pantry alone against the other 2 million. 800,000 pounds in one town on the South Shore. Before COVID, when I was hired to do this job, we were at 300. This number this year is higher than the number we had at the height of COVID. In 2020, when the lines were long and we were all over the TV, we're serving more people now. So there is a problem. Get involved. How are you doing? Food drive, donate money, donate your time. We appreciate all of it. Thank you. Is there anything else, Erin? You're exaggerating.
Does anybody have any questions for Pam? I will open it up at this time.
First of all, thank you very much for everything you do. The buying power is something, when I first heard that, it totally blew me away. I'm glad you brought that up. So, first of all, how do we help you get more passionate about what you do? And what do you see the next step? I know you anticipate, where are you gonna go from here? I mean, it sounds like you've done a phenomenal job. How do you see yourself moving to the next level?
I'm super excited about what lies ahead of us for the next 5 years. We've just spent a year doing a strategic plan with our board. So one of the things we have coming online is the first of its kind, really, is a food pantry bus. So other versions of this exist, but none quite like this one. We've, with the town of Weymouth, with the CARES Act funding, we've bought a super sexy 30-foot bright yellow school bus. She's going to be repainted, because I didn't know that it was illegal you would have a school bus that was yellow, because that's reserved only for school buses. So she's going to get a different color, but she's going to be decked out front to back like the inside of a grocery store. So there will be a bread section, a produce section, a freezer fridge section, dry goods section, and we can go anywhere. So we can go to housing areas or high density areas where we know there's a need and park there for a couple hours and people can come on and do their shopping and then get off the back of it and we can go somewhere else. And this model, the reason that I'm super excited about it is because transport, which is another thing that came out of our chamber breakfast yesterday, is one of the biggest barriers to accessing food security. So we can take that off the table. We can go to where you are. So that it solves one solution. But the other thing too is that it's completely flexible. I can be in 10 places in a day. I can be in one place in a day. I can be in this town. I can be in that town. What? Hingham Food Pantry had their basement flooded, and now they've learned that there's mold and asbestos, and they have to do a huge remediation project, and they're going to have to close down for 6 months. True story. I can send the bus, and service does not have to be disrupted. So that bus I'm super excited about. And the other great thing is it's scalable. So if it does well in this town, we could have 100 food pantry buses, and they could go everywhere. So I'm very excited about that one. We have a lot of, the usual diversity, equity, inclusion space. So one of the ways we're going to be addressing that is we're not bringing in translators. I'm putting the Rosetta Stone app on everybody's phone at my office. I'm paying for it because I feel like it's not, these are our neighbors. They're living in our community. They don't speak English. That is not somebody else's problem to come in and solve. We don't have to find someone who speaks both languages. We can learn. And maybe we don't learn the entire language, but we can learn enough to have a conversation. So ownership of the diversity, equity, inclusion thing is a big thing. And then regional rescue system, we've done so well for Weymouth with our rescue food operation. So we want to take that and do a regional hub. One of the biggest, because some of the food pantries are smaller, because they're all entirely volunteer run, time is limited, resources are limited. There's food in other towns and other places that is going to waste. Fresh meat that comes off the shelf when it doesn't sell, they will freeze, they will give it to a pig farmer or stick it in the anaerobic digester. If you understand the carbon footprint of meat, first you've got to grow the food for the animal, then you've got to feed it to the animal, then you've got to slaughter the animal, then you've got to keep it refrigerated from this point to this point. Meat is the highest carbon footprint of any food we eat. So the fact that it's being wasted, you think of all those resources that we're throwing away, just can't happen. So a regional rescue program where we can mobilize multiple trucks, go to grocery stores all over the South Shore, bring everything back, sort it, label it, and then have food pantries who are already coming to us for other things, pick up that at the same time. That's something that we really want to move towards. So there's a lot of opportunity for us still to, as South Shore Food Bank, to fill gaps, to meet needs, to capture waste, to do better, to serve more people, to reach more people. And then, food pantry, at the food pantry level, because there's two different organizations, the same thing. There's a lot of opportunity for us to keep asking, what are the barriers? What are we missing? And how can I help?
Hi, do you want to speak about your art a little bit, please?
Maybe do that.
I did.
So in my free time, this is my form of meditation. I like to paint and I like to write. And so this is some of my work. The dog is a mixed media. If you get up close, you will see it's actually words. A friend of mine lost her dog, and this is a portrait of him I gave it to her. And so it's words from Life magazine. And then the dogwood and the fig and the goldfish are all acrylics, and then what's lying down on the tabletop there is watercolor.
Lily has a question.
It's remarkable. Congratulations. Thank you. And certainly I think probably everyone recognizes how food security has become a major issue no matter where you live. One of the things that I've been following and I'm interested in seeing how if the food pantries are addressing it, and if so, how. is this concept that's going around the state when public food is medicine. Because, the populations that you serve, some of them are gonna have medical issues that, have dietary restrictions or modifications or, is that at all something that your staff deals with?
Yes, it is. And so at Weymouth Food Pantry level, I'm super proud to say that our backpack program, for example, which is just one of the 5 programs we run, serving 500 kids, is modified, that we do a standard menu, and that is modified for every food allergy or food cultural, to be culturally relevant for anybody or whatever. It's modified, I think, 13 times. So whatever your food allergy is, whether it's dairy, nuts, if you're vegan, if you're halal, whatever it is, we make sure that the food that we're delivering will meet those unique requirements. And it's a thing. And I'm very grateful that we work with the teachers that we work, that we have the support that we do, that we can do that. But it remains a massive challenge. So one of the things that we, at the Bachelor Food Bank level, we're prioritizing is access to fresh food, because fruits and vegetables, access to fresh food and becoming a free choice pantry are 2 things that we're really trying hard to push for. Because if you have fruits and vegetables and raw ingredients available, that will already solve a lot of those issues. Fresh fruits and vegetables is absolutely key. No one should live on, processed food. No one, it's not good for you. So, those are 2 things we push for. We're heavily involved in making fresh food access, fresh vegetables and fruit specifically, but also the meat part as part of our rescue strategy, available to all food pantries. But I will say that it is still a challenge. And so if this is the one way that you can get involved and help, this is your way. You can go and label things in the food pantry in your town, wherever that is, or do food drives for gluten-free foods when you're food pantry, or whatever it is. It's going to take a village. So we don't have all the answers. I know we're working towards it, but I know that it is a huge challenge for some small food pantries, especially the underresourced ones.
And picking up on that, and then I'll kind of question it. So from the cross, so that'll help, and then where we literally try to get support for doctors, right? Doctors can write prescriptions for food. As a health plan, especially with seniors, we're restricted and have been literally, this has been 15 years advocacy, trying to say, because as a health plan, we have to treat everybody the same. So if I offer you food, I have to offer it to everybody that's seniors. And we've been trying to get the government to say, like, that's crazy, because we have to scale for that, like, you can't just do that. So, but we have people, and we do some work with community serving. That's why I love the yeah, because it's similar, where it's that people will get readmitted to hospital because they're not getting the nutrients they need. Like, I think of that story with organic, the guy with a can of vegetables. Like, he's got a chronic condition. He's going right back into the hospital. Like, there's no question. So, it's such an important piece of it. And some of it's challenging when it comes to seniors and things like that. And how do you do that? But I mean, it's core to it. And just being able to kind of offer those benefits to those that actually need it is really important thing. I was wondering, so my question, so I just, like, when I saw them branch into that, I'm like, yeah, that's taking a page out of like what some do. And that's what I was going to ask you, because I think, all politics is localized, as they say, and I almost feel like the same applies to food pantry and hunger issues. There's some universalities, but when you think of the South Shore and other parts of the state or other parts of the country, depending on who you interact with, is there anything you picked out from them that you're like, yeah, I can apply that down here? I know it's happening in reverse, such as the centralized that you guys kind of picked up with this, or I know that's happening in reverse. But is there anything you picked up? And then my last pitch before you answer this, you work for a company that does something. Don't forget to sign it up. I work for one, but then my husband's will match what I do. It's insane. So like, that one can of tuna that turns into 7,000 now turns into 40, like, just for signing a stupid form. So I just. Anyways, but yeah, so anything like from other places in the state or anything that you'd like, that you think about what they're doing that you thought was helpful? We're kind of a unique, well, I hate saying we're unique, but it is a.
Yeah, I mean, I think even beyond the bit, so first of all, you raised a great point, which I want to point out, which is another way for you to get involved, and that is always advocate for food insecurity with your local politicians. A lot of change that needs to happen, conversation we had this morning, is at a policy level. And so, if you hear of a bill or something before people, please add your voice, please make a phone call. I mean, it's going to take you 5 minutes, and it can be absolutely life-changing. So I think that, we really pride ourselves on looking not only where else in the state, but where else in what are other people doing? And so the Made with Love program is one such example, because the idea sparked out of something that was happening, I think in Ohio, where they were actually capturing lost or redundant food at universities or schools or restaurants, and then reimagining them into meals and then freezing them. And so we wanted to do that. And so we applied to the state for a grant. We got it. Yay, go us. We're going to make this happen. And then COVID happened, and the restaurant world and whatever, we just we tried our best. So we were lucky enough to get an extension, and so it was reimagined a little bit, but we're back to that idea of capturing lost food. And then there's this organization in Boston that does the actually another Blue Cross Blue Shield member of your team, who I'm a huge fan of, Michelle, who won the volunteer award. Amazing. Weymouth resident. He sent me an article about this kitchen that opens up. They cook lunch for a woman in the city, and so targeted at women, I think, because it's a vulnerable population, and they wanted a safe space for women to gather and whatever. So they cook this massive lunch and they open, and any woman, regardless of where you are, or what you're doing, can come in and have lunch. And that's awesome. I want to, so that is something that we're looking at. How can I do that in Weymouth? It's a little more challenging because we aren't as densely populated, and so then transport becomes a barrier again. And so there's, all these layers to every situation. But that idea of community, of gathering. So we'll talk quickly too about intersectionality. And I tell the story about the guy who invented the pacemaker, who, as I understand, was an electrical engineer and then became a doctor. And so that idea probably wouldn't have existed if we didn't have somebody in both worlds, thinking, oh, well, I had this knowledge and we can apply it here, and then we can do this life-saving thing. So that don't be afraid ever of that, of sitting with people who are other or from a different walk of life, because that is where the magic happens for anything. The best solutions come out of those little areas, where, somebody with a completely different skill set sits with you, or somebody with completely different life experiences. That's where you learn the most, we grow the most. And the best answers for problems that we have come from. So, does that answer your question?
I think we're at our time. I just want to thank you again. You are.
Can I just say one last thing? Two things, if I may. I know we're over time, but first thing is that I am who I am because you are who you are. I believe that is what you say. I'm inspired all the time by the women and men that I meet here. in the chamber and by the things that you're doing. And I'm always thinking about how we can apply them and work together. And so I grow constantly from our interactions with all of you. And I'm so grateful again for the chamber for hosting this and for these opportunities to get to know each other. And then I want to read you something, if I may. I save it on my phone to remind, I read it every now and then. It's a quote from Desmond Tutu. Who says,